Hello guys, this is Technocosm. I decided that I would start doing the making of videos that I was doing on my old channel, on this channel. It did feel a bit weird having them on that channel. And although I kind of wanted to prevent this channel from getting cluttered because I want it to be all about my proper music, at the same time, I didn't know where else this would go. Either way, definitely the people who would watch the music I make would benefit from this kind of stuff anyway. So I should be putting it on this channel. I've been having a bit of trouble with OBS. I've already recorded this, so you may know if you watch my old channel. I always use Bandicam, but yeah, not anymore. I'm trying to transition over. Anyway, I'm not really right up for showing this off now since I already did for 20 minutes and not recorded. But anyway, this the name of this file speaks for itself. I find this growl sound very satisfying. The mastering is incomplete because I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet until I know what the rest of this, the piece it's in, sounds like. So you could say that the mastering's a bit off. I don't know, but I just find this growl very satisfying. So yeah, that's the growl, and I'm about to show you how to make it. And I'm going to go relatively in depth for this one because I'm going to be explaining past concepts that I hadn't tackled before. Sorry, I'd already tackled before. Just because again, this is a new channel, there might be newcomers, and I think it bears repeating. So the sound actually starts in the drums that we've already got over here. If we just single this out. It starts with this. So first of all we start with this snare, which is the first what I haven't gotten many snares, but and I've forgotten where a lot of them were from, but I know that these are from there was a free pack of dubstep snares being given out by this guy. I think it was called Ghost Hack. And this is the Ghost Hack's dubstep snares pack. So if you just look up Ghost Hack's dubstep snares, you should be able to find this, and this is 100% free. Everything I'm about to show you is 100% free. I have not spent any money on making music at all, so far. So yeah, so there's your snare. It goes in here, and I pitched it so that it's playing a D note and a sharp note, just so it's a bit higher pitched, and then I've done this to it. We've got the EQ here. I'm not sure if this is actually a good idea, but I'm just being a bit experimental because I'm practically always doing the same thing with my drums, and I one of the reasons that sometimes I just don't want to make music is just because I don't want to make the snares, but it's not going to sound good without the snares, and I have to spend all this time doing the exact same stuff I do every time with the snares, so sometimes I try and spice it up. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, but anyway, there's a multi-brand compressor here with Maximus, because I mean it's really good, and we've got a controller, which its mix is being side chained as well as the mix of this next thing is being side chained, which is the main thing which is making this sound all weird and wobbly. It's free delay, so it's basically an echo, but the echo time is extremely short. The time modulation, which if you're thinking what the hell is that, it's basically like pitch bending. The pitch will get higher or lower. It's almost kind of like unison pitch thickness. And I've also messed with the sample rate and the filtering, but I don't think that actually is a very audible change, so I guess it doesn't matter. I just love messing with the sample rate on Fruity Delay 3. I honestly overuse it, but I think that the sample rate changing in Fruity Delay 3 is one of the coolest things just in FL Studio, even though it's so small. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the moving knob, even though that this is paused. Yeah, this is moving because I've got an LFO on the master that's set to move up and down at a syncopated time. It's not in rhythm with the rest of everything. Basically, this is just because if ping pong panic's a really nice effect, which you don't know what it is. It's essentially with mono. I think it's stereo. Yeah, with stereo. When you have a pan wheel on a delay, if you move it to the left, it goes in the left. If you move it to the right, it goes in the right ear. With ping pong panning, if you move it to the left, the first echo goes in the left ear, then the second echo goes in the right ear, then the third echo goes in the left ear, then the fourth echo goes in the right ear. You get the point. The thing is, though, that since the first echoes will always be louder than the second echoes, that means that you still got a bias on one side, which can be kind of annoying. I want it to kind of feel evenly spread, even if I don't know, but it's probably not technically completely evenly spread. So the panning is always moving from one side to the other. And it's off time, like it purposely doesn't match with the rhythm of the thing because it doesn't have to, and as well as that, I think if it does match, it actually sounds worse because you can kind of tell whenever it goes here, it goes to this side, and wherever it goes here, it goes this side, and you just want to, yeah, you want it to not feel predictable. I don't know. I don't like it when it's like that. I don't know if you'll understand what I'm on about, if this sounds weird. But anyway, so yeah, that's the snare, and then it goes into this Fruity Granulizer. It goes into this tab, and oh yeah, I recorded it with Edison. Just the record button up here. You go on there and you go into that, and you select when this pops up. You select none on there to stop it from being terrible. And then it starts recording, and then you stop recording, and well, I've done something wrong there, but usually, yeah. Oh, I think it's because I don't know what's going on there. I've done something terribly wrong. Well, whatever. Yeah, you just... Anyway, I'm pretty sure when you do it, you won't have the same problem. I've never seen that happen before. Well, anyway, I don't even know why it was doing accounting either. Okay, weird. Anyway, so yeah, you record it and you put it in. And then, there's a good amount of you there who I don't really know a lot, about what other people's experiences are working with FL Studio. So, I really don't know if I'm ahead or behind, honestly, but, I know that I know some things. Anyway, I think for most people, though, this will be one of those plugins they just don't touch. I mean, there are a lot of plugins you just don't touch, to be fair. Like, in this list, use that. Oh yeah, I couldn't get this working. It's a third-party plugin I tried to get in there. Don't really use that. Never 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 use that. Used to use that a bit, but not really anymore. Use that a little bit. Use that a little bit. Never use that. Never use that. You get the idea. There's a lot of things you don't use. So I understand why you might have skipped over this, but thingy. This is actually really powerful if you don't have money. Now I don't have money, so this is a godsend for me because basically what I'm on about is Serum. Now, if you've heard of Serum, you'll probably know it's an amazing dubstep synth. The amount of times I've heard an amazing dubstep sound, and it's like, oh, I made a tutorial showing you how to do it. It's like, oh my god, thank god, yes, I finally can make this sound. And it's like, Serum. Yeah, for a while I just kind of accepted, right, I can't make those Serum sounds. But at some point I started realizing that a lot of things I could do with some synths that seemed like exclusive to those synths could be done with other synths or combinations of synths, if you knew how it worked. So this is a while ago now though, started looking into how Serum worked, and I basically figured out that I could get the same kind of effect with a granulizer and a Vocodex. So that's why we're using a granulizer here. I don't remember all the ins about how Serum worked, but I remember that I think you take a sample and you create a waveform out of that sample. Sorry, you create multiple waveforms out of loads of small snippets of that sample, and then you swap between those waveforms. So this is kind of similar. What this does is, a granulizer splits a sound up into multiple grains, which are split seconds of the original sound. And the main thing, modulators here for changing the way this sounds is the grain spacing and the wave spacing. For the grain spacing, what it does is it changes the gap between each grain. So if it's at 100%, it plays back normally. If it's below 100%, there'll be small overlap in between the grains to make it play faster. And if it's above 100%, there'll be small gaps where there are no sound in between the grains to make it sound longer. I think it can go up to 300%. It's either that or 200. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Actually, I can just turn it up because I've not got enough. Yeah, it goes up to 300. I thought I had an automation clip on this, but I actually don't yet. Anyway. Oh yeah, by the way, if any of you have ever created an automation clip and then turned the knob that you created an automation clip for manually, and then it stopped working, if you want to get it working again, you have to right-click it, go on Link Controller, and click Accept, and it'll start working again, if you ever have that issue. Anyway, we've got wave spacing here. Now, wave spacing I'm less sure about, but what I think it is that normally at 100%, each grain will just be, once it's finished recording one split second of the sound, it starts the next recording from the end of the last grain. But with wave spacing below 100%, when it starts recording the next grain, it'll kind of go back and it'll re-record what you've already heard a little bit. And the lower the percentage is, the more it kind of reuses same parts of the sound, making it slower. And then at higher amounts, it'll skip parts of the sound, I think, making it faster. Without having to change the pitch either. So if you've ever heard kind of a weird effect on people's voice when they try and make it slower or faster without changing the pitch of their voice, it's because they are actually creating gaps or overlaps using, granular synthesis techniques. And anyway, but yeah, when you what I've done here is I've got this automation clip for the wave spacing, which moves it like this, and you'll hear what this sounds like in a bit. The grain spacing is always at the lowest setting at the moment, although I usually do modulate it a bit. I just haven't found a useful way to use it yet. I'll probably use it later. But anyway, we take this sound and we vocode it to another sound. In fact, wait, I will play it first. That is the sound. Now, you may be thinking, hang on a minute, are you hearing that buzz? Yes, I am hearing that buzz. Is my computer broken? No, it's not. Well, yes it is, but no it's not. Essentially, when the wave spacing goes to 0, you're just hearing the same split second of sound repeated over and over and over and over and over, because it's not moving anymore at 0%. Now the thing is with that, you may wonder, well, why does that sound like, the computer dying? Because, if a computer it kind of freezes while it's playing a sound, then it might just get stuck playing that one split second of the sound and just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over. And that's why it sounds a lot like a computer dying. So anyway, there's that sound, and then there's the second part of the sound, which I decided to make a FM Sytrus synth. So it's this. So when you hear that, you probably hear a lot more of the original sound. This first sound that I was showing you is a lot more just to give it some kind of texture and depth and make it sound like, a bit less mechanical. What we got here, we've got this weird sine wave that's been compressed by increasing the tension, and it's being modulated. So modulation is mapped to this X modulator, which is mapped to a automation clip, and it is being FM modulated by this thing, which is an octave lower. But yeah. So sorry, I forgot to mention. If you go into the oscillator tab, the way I've created this is that I've got the third and fifth harmonic on quite high. So if you don't know about harmonics, essentially, Sytrus is kind of partially an additive synthesizer, which is additive synthesizers work on the basis that of sine waves. Now, sine waves are, well, you should know by this point, but it's basically when you have It's these things. This is a sine wave thingy. When you have technically, it is possible to create any sound in the entire world out of sine waves if you just have enough. Now, technically, it's unrealistic for you to have enough, like to perfectly recreate them, but you can be pretty damn close when you're given this many sine waves. Yeah, 255. We got a whole 8 bits to work with here. Anyway, so yeah, what we're doing here is we're adding each harmonic, the number it is how many times higher pitched it is. So harmonic 2 will be double the pitch of harmonic 1. Harmonic 3, so over here is going to be triple the pitch, and this will be 5 times the pitch, double the pitch. So yeah, that's and each of these like extra shaded ones is another octave. So double the pitch means that it's the next octave up, and then double that the next octave, double that the next octave. You get the idea. Anyway, so that creates this weird shape, and with this one I've done something a bit weirder. I've also got the 7th harmonic, the 9th harmonic, and the 48th harmonic, which adds this kind of harsh, like, higher tone. Oh yeah, there's a concept I forgot. Oh no, I did explain it kind of brief. Oh wait, no, I think that was in the old version that went away. Okay, so yeah, phase cancellation is something that I need to explain here, to explain how this works. Phase cancellation is essentially, although I wouldn't quote me on this for how the actual science behind it works, but like this is how all you need to know from a sound design perspective. When you look at this oscilloscope thing, you may be kind of confused because it goes up and down when there's volume, and when there's no volume, instead of going like all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top, it's in the middle. And you may think, well, why does it need to do that? Why can't it just go up when there's volume, not up and down? Well, that's because there's technically positive and negative volume, kind of. Essentially, because all sound is technically movement, you can have a movement in one direction and then another movement in the opposite direction. Both of those can be heard, and they both sound the same, but they're different. And the reason that it's important that they're different is that if you have two opposing movements at the same like time and space, obviously they will counteract each other. Same thing with sound. If you have a positive and a negative kind of volume being played at the same time, they will cancel each other out and reduce the volume of each other. Whichever is louder will be the one that comes out on top, or if they're the exact same, you just won't hear anything. But yeah, what we got here is that this shape is getting all these little bumps because the extra higher pitch things are phase cancelling out with this. And that's how any amount of sine waves can create any sound, theoretically. An infinite amount of sine waves can create any sound, theoretically, because with enough phase cancellation, with enough sine harmonics, you can just change the shape of the wave to be anything. Anyway, so yeah, this thing is all weird and spiky because it's being phase cancelled by a sound that's extremely high pitched, and it makes many, many oscillations before this original first harmonic makes one oscillation. So yeah, the actual shape itself was mostly a saw wave with a bit of triangle in it that I've skewed and then just added all these harmonics to. I've got this LFO here on the pitch section. So what you can do here is you can detune the modulator, and then the way it modulates the sound will match up with the pitch of the sound itself, which means that as you hold the note, it starts to sound different the longer you hold the note, which is extremely interesting. It works with both FM and RM synthesis, although I think that it sounds a lot more pleasant with RM modulation. But it can work with FM too, and it works here. Here, usually what I just do is I manually set it to be just below 1, or just below 2, or whatever number, like something like 9.9 or 9.95 or whatever. Here, though, I've decided to have an LFO, which moves the pitch up and down, and the longer the note is held, the more the LFO goes up and down. So yeah, there's more kind of vibrato going on there, and that means that the speed of this modulator will rarely actually perfectly match this, so there'll be slight kind of disconnect, and the longer the note's held, the more that it'll kind of move across the wave. Because essentially, if these were both exactly at the same pitch all the time, say this point right here would always be modulated by this part of this sound wave all the time, as long as the note is held. The reason why it's good to not have it like that, to have it just barely off pitch, because if it's just barely off pitch, this part at first would start being modulated by this part, but then slowly, if this thing's not going moving at a high enough pitch, this wave will start to move forward faster than this one will, meaning that this one's the point at which that part's being modulated will start to move backwards on this, and then this part will start modulating it, and then this part, and then this part, and then this part, and then this part, and then back to the beginning. It can happen slowly enough if you make sure that it's very close to the correct pitch, but not quite there, that it's not too crazy. Although sometimes a dubstep you can make it really crazy and it actually turns out nice. Anyway, yeah, a lot of technical stuff, but I definitely think it's kind of beneficial to know. And then, oh yeah, speaking of phase cancellation, there's just one more thing I wanted to talk about here. Essentially, grain spacing. The reason why I usually have it on a very low setting, because I usually do, is because when you have it at a lower setting, you have these overlapping grains, and when you have overlapping grains, it increases the amount of phase cancellation, which kind of makes the sound more gritty and kind of buzzy. If you ever want a buzzy sound, you definitely want like phase cancellation stuff going on, because you want to have a very low sound that has lots of fast phase cancellation going on, usually with like a slightly off-pitch modulator, FM or RM, whichever one you want, although again I say RM's a little bit easier to work with. So yeah, and that's how you can create a lot of these kind of buzzy sounds, and I like buzzy sounds. Yeah, these both go into a Vocodex, which if you didn't know how to use Vocodex, essentially you route two channels into this. So as you can see, this is connected to this instead of the master, and so is this, and then this is connected to the master. You route two in here, and then these will be represented by a 1 and a 2 on here. Before, this would just be a 0 or a nothing, and both of these kind of just, well, mean nothing. But once you connect these up, you'll get the option to move these up numbers. If I can't move this higher than 2, but if I connected a third thing, it will move up to 3. Anyway, what happens with a Vocodex, I'm pretty sure. Again, I don't actually. I might be a little bit wrong, but this is what I'm pretty sure how it works. So basically, the carrier just goes into the Vocodex and is at first unchanged, and then the modulator goes in. In here, I've set the modulator to be 1 and the carrier to be 2, with this being 2 and this being 1. So the granulizer sound is modulating the Sytrus sound. The modulator, the carrier, when it goes in, see all these bands. Basically, it's split into this amount of bands. You can change it up and down. I usually have it at a very low setting, not because I think it sounds better, but just so my computer doesn't die. I can't really hear what the higher ones sound like very accurately usually, so because of lag. So yeah, I usually stick to the lower ones. But if you've got a good computer, mess around with the higher ones. Anyway, yeah, it splits it into that many copies of the sound, but only with like the pitch, like the only the pitch around a certain pitch range is it audible, and they split it evenly across like into that many pieces across the whole spectrum, unless if you go into here and mess with the band distribution. I thought this is how you do it. Oh no, that's a different kind of band distribution that I thought. I thought that would change the width of the band. Oh, band width, yeah. Maybe that would do it. Yeah, you can mess around with it like this and make it less even, but I usually don't do that. Although you could have some fun with that if you wanted. You can definitely do some. I might try that next time I'm out of ideas. Anyway, so yeah, each of these bands, the volume of like that they put out is controlled by the modulator. So essentially, it modulates the it measures the volume of the modulator at all these different pitch ranges these bands are at, and then it only allows them to be as loud as they are for the modulator. And since there's a carrier, it's affecting, the modulator's affecting the carrier, and that's why it's called the modulator, because, modulator means it's changing it. Now, you can even tell that this is what's going on, because you remember there's that kind of horrible kind of sound in the second part when this thing isn't in the Vocodex, and during that part it's playing a constant sound that doesn't change in volume. Well, look what happens after the first part with the volumes of the bands. It doesn't move, it just stops. It just stays still at a certain point, and then it drops, which shows that it's playing that part. So yeah. Now, this order section, I don't know what it actually does, like, to do this effect, but when you have it more, when you have less order, it's either closer to the modulator or the carrier. I've forgotten which way around it is. And when you have more order, it's closer to the other one. There's a sound goodizer built into this, so if you didn't know, sound goodizer is one of the plugins. I actually don't recommend using this, even though I know it's like efficient. Basically, it's not actually really a customizable synth. It's just 4 Maximus presets that you can change the mix level of, but they're just apparently good presets. They're just really good for compressing a sound, and well, it's called the sound goodizer because it just makes them sound good, nice and easily and quick. But I don't know, I just don't like using it. But there is a sound goodizer built into Vocodex, and Vocodex sounds usually do need compression after they've been made, because they've got so many like different aspects to them that like it's nice to have all that different like dynamic range. At the same time though, there's so much going on, it's hard to follow, and it actually gets to the point of being like kind of annoying to listen to. So I do think you need to compress it a little bit, so I turn up the sound goodizing level a little. Anyway, and then there's bandwidth, which when it's at 100%, all the bands will touch each other at the very ends. When it's over 100%, they'll actually start to overlap, and as we learned from earlier with grain spacing and all that, when you have overlap, it creates phase cancellation, which creates more buzzy sounds and more wet kind of sounds. So this growl sounds nice and wet because I've set the bandwidth to 210%. So at 200, all the bands will perfectly overlap each other once. Above 200, they'll overlap each other a third time. But the third overlap, because it's only just over 200, will only be in a very small frequency range for each band, which creates, again, a nice buzzy sound. And you can see these overlaps here. The little brighter bits, that's where it's overlapping. This can go up to 300%. So yeah. I'm not sure, I'm just going to copy the value, but I think if I turn this down it would sound a whole lot less wet. Yeah, that sounds a lot more kind of drony. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, sorry, just messing around with that. Then there's also the modulator. It's a pitch shift, which changes the pitch of the modulator. That doesn't change the pitch of the sound. It just changes it moves where these bands are, either lower or higher. So it's essentially like using EQ to boost lower or higher frequencies, kind of. So yeah, and then it's just being wave shaped. So yeah, that's a very abrupt end, but we're basically done here. Now I wasn't going to test play this because I didn't think my computer could handle it. But, well, in the test recording it did. It actually did better than it did before I started recording, which is strange, because, I started recording, but I'm not complaining. Anyway, I guess I'll test play it now, just to give you a little sneak peek of what this is going to be. And there's the second part that's kind of in the making. So, if you want to know how to make any of those other sounds, I could make a video on that too. And it would probably be a much shorter video, but with that, that's it for this video. Probably going to have to cut this into 2 parts because I did talk about a lot here. But I wanted this to be a nice introduction so that you could kind of not just get some knowledge on how to make this sound, but just get some general knowledge on music making. And because if you understand how things work, you can get a lot more creative with it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.